Oh, is that one on? Okay. Okay. So I guess we don't really need to look into a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos to tell us to be honest, not to steal. Even though we're going to go over a few of these things to see what the Torah says, how we're supposed to deal with monetary issues. But I guess when it says other people's money and other people's possession should be precious to you like your own, it means just like with my own, I don't look into a book and check out if I'm obligated to protect this or obligated to make sure that this doesn't get broken, or I do the best I can because this belongs to me. I don't want to lose money. So when it comes to others, you should do the same thing. So I want to go through a few things just to be familiar with what it says in the Torah. There's, of course, much more than this. And we know the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, is divided into 4 groups, 4 categories. We don't have them on the wall here, but you probably have them. Oh, it's over there in class, or you will have them in class. What?
Another 4.
What are they?
No, I meant like before.
Oh, 4. Very good. That's true. It's another 4. Right. In fact, the reason why the author made his book in 4 columns is because the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohen Gadol had a plate that he wore with diamonds, and that had also 4 columns and 3 diamonds in each column, representing the 4 tribes. Which, by the way, when the tribes are traveling in the desert, they traveled in 4 groups. There were 12 tribes, but each tribe got together in one group. So they had 4 banners, 4 groups, many other things with 4. So the one of the volumes of the Shulchan Aruch is called Choshen Mishpat, which means it's all about monetary issues, hundreds of pages and thousands of commentary. So there's a lot that we can learn about monetary issues, what's permissible, what's not permissible. So what I'm saying here is just the tip of the iceberg, just to mention some things. So first of all, in the Chumash itself, in the Torah itself, well, let me ask you a question before I ask this question. Is not stealing one of the 10 commandments? Do not steal?
No. No, it isn't.
Yes, I think no. Yeah.
It's interesting. Some say yes and some say no. What else is new? So the truth is, one of the 10 commandments, do not steal.
It is?
Yep. The reason why I'm asking the question is because it doesn't mean do not steal money. Yeah, in the 10 commandments, it's referring to kidnapping. You're not allowed to steal another life, a human being. Because over there it says if you do, it's punishable by death. That's not for stealing money, that's only stealing a person, chas v'sholem.
But you say also, I did not.
Oh, so there's, Lord Tzach means do not kill.
No, it's not the same.
No.
Like a it's not.
No, killing means that you destroy the person's life. Kidnapping means you just take him and you lock him up in your house.
לא לגנוב בן אדם.
כן.
אנשים עושים, טוב, אנשים עושים את זה, כן.
Unfortunately, yes, a lot of people do that. And they do it either to hurt someone or they do it to make money, ransom.
Is not stealing monetary or like possessions part of 613?
Yeah, that's what I want to show you now. Number 2, there are 2 places in the Torah where it does say explicitly, it's one of the 365 commandments. One says lo tignovu, and the other one says lo tigzo. Both are do not steal. So what is the difference between number 2 and number 3? No tignovu, the word in Hebrew is called gneva or gezela. There is a difference. Gneva means when a person steals money in a way that they do it in hiding. In other words, you don't know they go into someone's house when the person's not there. They pickpocket someone. They do it in a way that the victim has no idea that they're still being someone stealing their money. Lo tigzo means do not steal when a person steals openly, which means they come armed with a knife or a gun and they hold up the other person openly. And that's, of course, also not permissible. So why is it separate in the Torah? Because it's interesting, there's different halachas, halachic ramification. When you steal in a way that you're hiding your identity, you have to pay double. When you steal in a way that you're not hiding your identity, you don't have to pay back double. Just whatever you took, you pay back. Why?
Because they're only fearing the person, not Hashem.
Right. That's the reason that's given. If you hide from the person, it means you're afraid of the person. So why are you stealing? Hashem is watching you. So you're sort of doing an act, in English, they say actions speak louder than words. When we act a certain way, it's making a statement. When a person hides by stealing something from someone, they're making a statement. I'm worried about people seeing me. I don't care that Hashem is seeing me. So that's a rebellious act against Hashem. And that's why the Torah punishes him and tells him to pay double. When a person steals, it's a terrible thing, and he has to pay back what he took, and he has to ask for forgiveness, of course. But both are found in the Torah, and both are commandments. Do not steal. Not steal how much? Does it have to be a lot of money, a little bit of money? So the halacha is, in America, it's a cent. In other countries, it's other coins. In Israel, it's different coins. But it's the lowest amount. In the Gemara, it would be called a pruta. But that means the lowest unit there is. If you steal that, it's considered stealing according to Torah.
What is possession?
Same thing, if it's worth. If it's possession, it goes by monetary worth. If it's worth a penny, then you're not allowed to take it. Even if it's worth less than a penny, you're still not allowed to take it, but it's not an explicit violation of the Torah. But if it's worth 1 penny and up, it's an explicit violation of the
Like
Torah.
1 cent.
1 cent here, and in other countries would be whatever the currency is there.
Is that why engagement rings have to be, or not engagement, sorry, wedding bands have to be like a pruta or something?
Right, it means it has no money value if it's less than a pruta. Yeah. Not that a pruta is a lot of money, but it means if it has no pruta, it's considered no value according to Torah. Number 4 is an interesting, it's a little bit different, but let me read it to you. It reads, Din pruta kedin meya, which means it should be read this way, not laws. Judgment pertaining to a penny are the same as judgment pertaining to $100. This is actually a message to a judge. A person's in a courtroom and 2 people come and they have an argument. One person says, you owe me $5,000. And the other person says, I don't owe you $5,000. One person says, this house, which is worth $100,000 belongs to me. And the other person says, it belongs to me. And you have to make the judgment. What if 2 people come to court and they're arguing and the judge is sitting there and he's shocked to hear this person says, this penny is mine. And he says, that penny is mine. The normal reaction of a judge would be, come on, I'm not going to waste time on this. I'll either rule that it goes to this one or to that one. It's a penny, big deal. So there's a halacha that a penny is just like $100, $1 million, as far as taking it from someone that doesn't deserve it. And this judge should give a ruling with the same sincerity and the same seriousness as he would if it would be $100. I mentioned this once in class before. Are you allowed to steal from a wealthy person to help out a poor person? No, according to the Torah, you're not allowed to do that.
Haha, socialists.
Also,
Is that, sorry, is that why religious Jews tend to be more conservative? Because for that reason of not taxing the rich?
no, I think taxes is a different category. We're talking about stealing.
Okay.
Taxes, you can tax whoever you want. If there's a government and you make certain laws, it's where somebody would come and say, like Bill Gates, if I take $1,000 out of his account somehow, and I give it to this poor person who's like almost falling apart, he would never know the difference with the kind of money he has. According to the Torah, I'm not allowed to take a penny out of someone else's pocket. It's not, I have no right to do
You
that.
should influence them as best as you can to give stuff.
That you can do, but you're not allowed to take it. And the logic behind it might not be so logical. It doesn't make any sense. But that means you have to be honest to that point.
So
Another thing which is, yeah,
the story of Robin Hood is not like.
Robin Hood is not according to Torah, right?
That's what I'm trying to.
I think this will be an interesting example where you find that the laws of Torah, even the ones that are logical, are really beyond logic. Because pure logic would dictate it's not so bad if I do that. Imagine someone is there in front of your eyes, being evicted from her apartment. She's a single mom with 4 kids, and she's struggling, and now she's being sent out into the street. And you can have a way of stealing money from a person who's a multi-billionaire, and just enough to pay for her rent. What's the logic behind it? What should be so terrible?
It is terrible.
What?
It is. It's very terrible. It's terrible, even if it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, because when it's last year and if you take that money, then the millionaire was actually going to use that money for a different purpose, which was much more needed, like to pay for somebody's medical expenses.
Yeah, but if you have $180 billion, come on, $432 is not going to make a difference.
Most of that to pay his
No, I mean to say you can find logic in it, especially if there's an emotionalist issue. Logic would surely dictate that it's okay to do this. But the Torah you have to observe because that's the halacha. I want to say another thing which is relevant in a dorm, and that is, am I allowed to take something from another person with the intention to give it back later?
No. Except for Sidu.
Unless maybe it's like a pack of 300 Q-tips. You just really need. No, I'm just kidding.
If there are 2 friends that they sort of mutually understand this among themselves, it's a different story. But halachically, I'm not allowed to, even if I'm thinking that I'll bring it back in an hour, what's the big deal? I'm not allowed to take it without permission. And very often in a dorm, I'll take this person's umbrella, I'll be back soon, I'll take their brush, I'll be back soon, I'll take this other thing, a pencil, a pen. Halachically, you're not allowed to take something. So again, if it's like understood amongst friends that it's not a big deal, so it's not a problem.
I saw a situation like that many times, and it turned very in a horrible way. Like misunderstood. It's not just like the way that you don't take to respect the other one, that he's like I exist.
Exactly.
Just
That's
ask. I'm not saying
exactly
no,
that.
just
Plus the fact that also it could lead to some time that you don't end up returning it and you forget. And the other person's looking for it all over the place and they're aggravated, they need it. And you thought you'll bring them back in an hour, but you forgot. And now it's a day later, 2 days later.
I have a question
Yeah.
related to that. So my friend's mom and her next door neighbor, like whatever, the friends, even when the other ones are in the house, they will go to the other person's house through the back door and take whatever food item they're missing. Oh, I need like a little bit of baking soda. And it's a mutual thing, but I've noticed that one is taking a lot more than the other. Is that an issue? Even though it's a mutual thing that they.
As long as they're both aware of it, it's not an issue.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll give you an example of what could be. I mean, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it shorter. The Baal Shem Tov, there was a story of the Baal Shem Tov. He once traveled. I was going to a wedding. So he went with his students and they're traveling and they came to a certain city. They weren't yet at their destination. And the Baal Shem Tov stopped his wagon in the road and he approached someone who was there, someone they didn't know, they never recognized him. And he spoke to him, had some words with him, went back on his wagon and said, okay, we're going. So the older students said to the younger students, there's no way, this person must be a hidden tzaddik. Go find out what the Baal Shem Tov told him. So the younger students went after this guy and they stopped him. We saw our Rebbe stop to speak to you. We know that he doesn't stop to speak to just anyone. You must be a hidden tzaddik. Tell us what he told you. We want to learn anything we can from our teacher. And he said, I'm no hidden tzaddik. Please don't bother me. And they persisted and persisted and persisted. And finally said, okay, I'll tell you what it was about. When you hear the story, you'll see I'm very far from hidden tzaddik. But you will see that your Rebbe is a tzaddik beyond my wildest imagination. And he said, a story happened similar to what I just said. He said he had a friend that used to go on a business trip every year. He would go for a few months. Wherever he went, he made a lot of money. And then he would come back to his hometown and not work for, because this was his sort of the way that he was his sustenance. He would travel someplace else, make money, come back home, and the family would live with that money. But when he came home one time, his wife made a little party amongst the friends to come welcome him. He was away for a few months. So they made a little party, and he was a next door neighbor, like your mother and her friend. They go in and out of each other's house, like two brothers, two sisters. He goes into the house and he sees on the counter a stack of bills. Apparently, this must be the money that he brought back from his trip. But it was a lot of money, hundreds or thousands of rubles. And he said to himself, my friend is so careless. I'll teach him a lesson. Takes the money, puts it in his pocket. And the friend will see that it's lost, will get alarmed, and then he'll tell him, I took it away, so you should not, leave it around like that. And then he goes here, he goes there, he goes back into his house, and he got busy with whatever he got busy with. Then he goes back to his friend's house. He comes to his friend's house and he sees a scene that was very frightening. His wife is crying, he's crying, they're running all over the place looking. When he asks what's going on, and then she's saying, my husband lost all the money or somebody stole it, I don't know what happened, it's gone, and they're crying and they're hysterical. And he said to himself, if I give them back the money now, it's not going to be good. There's so many people around, they're not going to believe me. I'll wait till after the party and then I'll give it to them. But it was no party. I mean, they were very sad, they were very upset, and they didn't stop searching and looking and thinking, did I leave it here? Did I leave it there? So he thought he'll do it after the party. But after the party, they said, we're not going to sleep tonight. We're going to spend the whole night looking for it. We'll turn everything inside out. Okay, I'll give it them tomorrow. But then the next day he said, I give it them to now. They're going to say, if you really did it just for a joke, then why didn't you give it back last night when you saw we were hysterical? So I'll wait another day. Anyway, this is going on for weeks and for months. And finally he said to himself, all this money is sitting here. I might as well use the money, invest it, and I'll give him the profit, but I'll just do something with it. And that's where I was going now. I was actually traveling to a city to do business with this money. Your Rebbe, whom I never met and never saw, he stopped me and he said, give the money back to whoever you took it from. And I was shocked. How does he know what I'm doing here? And then I said to him, but they're not going to believe me. He said, give it back to them, explain to them what happened, and you'll still believe you. Don't worry. So that was the hidden tzaddik that he was, that really he was no hidden tzaddik. But that's what could happen also. You take something for a joke, you're going to borrow it for just an hour, and you forget. But halachically, even if that wouldn't be the reason, like you said before, you have to respect other people's possession. And you're not allowed to take something without permission. Number 5, another form of stealing is called cheating. In other words, in business. If I sell something to someone and I'm cheating in terms of the product that I'm selling you, I'm telling you that it's a good product and I know that it's a broken product. I know there's something wrong with it. Or I know the product is worth X amount of money and I'm charging you who knows how much more. It's not outright going to the other person's pocket and taking money out, but it's a form of stealing from the other person. That's lo sonu. They say in reference to the Chofetz Chaim, you heard his name? He was one of the greatest leaders in the Lithuanian world before the war. And he gave out a book. Actually, the name of the book is Chofetz Chaim. So when he published the book and he was going to sell it, every book that he sold, he went through all the pages to make sure nothing's missing, nothing's erased, everything's in good condition, because if he's selling something to someone, taking money for it, he has to make sure that it's an honest deal. So that's another form that could be stealing, when you take money for something and you're not being honest with what you're selling. Number 6 is another interesting scenario. It also is not the same like stealing, but in essence, it's also stealing. And there's a separate commandment in the Torah, leisashek, which means do not withhold. For example, someone gives you a loan. So you got the money in a permissible way. They gave it to you. And then when they ask you to give it back to them, you say, "That I don't have it. I don't want to give it back. Too bad." Why? Because I don't want to make the effort to give the money back to you. And that's it, I'm keeping it. Or you find some other excuse. You didn't say a nice hello to me, so I'm not giving it back to you. According to Torah, even though I didn't actually take the money from the other person, it's something passive. I'm just not giving it back to you. That's considered stealing because I owe you this money. Number 7, another example of taking something dishonestly is a mitzvah, a positive commandment, which is called Hashavas Aveda, returning a lost object. If someone loses something and you find it, are you allowed to keep it?
If you find it,
You know that it belongs to a certain person, has his name on it. Are you allowed to keep it? But they lost it.
You know who is.
In America, they say, finders keepers, losers weepers, which means whoever lost it, they cry,
I had that so many times.
and the one who finds it keeps it. But that's totally not according to Torah. I keep this
A girl stole my pen.
article because I was like shocked when I saw it. But this is an article that was printed in a newspaper. Here it is. It says, Cabby calls the tune 40G for cello. It's a story about a taxi driver. In the back seat, he had a person who's a famous celloist, and he left his instrument, the cello, in the taxi. Taxi driver drives off, and cello is a very interesting instrument. Some of them can cost millions of dollars. This cello costed $4 million. So the taxi driver let him know that he got it, he returned it, but he wanted to be rewarded for it. So he gave him $75. Said, no, you have to give me at least 1% of how much it's worth. He wanted $40,000 for returning it. $40,000. According to Torah, you're considered a thief if you take it. And you're not allowed to take. I mean, of course, a person could say, you made the effort to find me, to call me, but you're not allowed to hold it and definitely say, I'm not going to give it to you unless you pay me such and such. In fact, it's considered a mitzvah. If you return a lost object, it's a mitzvah.
Isn't this only applies to Jews though?
What?
This only applies to a Jewish person, right?
It probably applies to anybody, especially if you know who it is. The question is, what if you don't know whose it is?
Right.
You find an object, you don't know whose it is.
Try this.
Oh, so the halacha is like this. If the object has some indication, like if you find a dollar bill, forget it. If you find something that there are hundreds of those around, there's no indication that anybody can identify it with. Let's say you find a few $100s, but it's in a red rubber band. And the person who lost it can say, you say, who lost money? And someone says, I lost $800 and it was wrapped in a red rubber band. If they can do that, then you have to return it because they're giving you a sign. That's the joke when someone walks in and said, who lost $100 in a red rubber band? The guy says, me. He says, I found the rubber band, you know. This is called in Hebrew a simon. Simon means an indication. But if there's no indication, no way of identifying it, in a small community, it's a little bit more relevant. In a small community, if people have like lost and found, and they report it there, or they write on today people put it on the internet. If anyone lost in Crown Heights something on this in the street, or on this and this day, call me at this number, because if you're going to say what it is, someone could call up and say, oh, I lost it. Or if they say you lost a ring, tell me what kind of ring. What did it look like? Did it have a diamond? Was it without a diamond? Gold, yellow, white? Yeah.
I have a very interesting story about my mom.
Yeah.
And stealing. When my mom was in college in Israel, she had to commute from Beersheba to Jerusalem every day. And they really had no money. And the university gave her like this card that got her free meals every day, and also whatever. So she was on the bus and she forgot her wallet on the bus and had a bunch of cash in it and this card. And when she realized she lost it, she was devastated because like how she's gonna eat. Like literally, that's how she was relying on this
Card
system. And so the bus driver found the wallet, and then the lady was like, oh, I know that girl, I'll get it to her. And it was like some old lady, I don't know. And so he's like, okay, because my mom had her ID in it. And then he gave her the wallet. And then my mom called the bus company, and they got her to the driver. And the driver was like, oh, you didn't get it yet? I gave it to some lady. She said she knows you. She's like, no, like, I don't know any ladies. I'm like, I've immigrated here from Russia like a year ago. Like, what is this? And then he was like, okay, I have an idea. Come with me. So she got on the bus, on his bus, and they waited. And then this lady comes to the bus. And then he was like, no, like, lady, why not saying hi to your friend? And then she's like, what are you talking about? Like, your friend that you meant to return the wallet to. And then she ended up returning the wallet to all the money and cards, and then she didn't spend anything. It's just such a funny story.
Wow, wow. Yep, you see that that's the mitzvah, and it's there's a lot of halachas about how far out I'm supposed to go to return. I mean, there's a story in Gemara, and I think that's part of what the Mishnah says. Other people's money should be precious like your own. There was somebody that was once traveling, and he stopped off at a farm, sat down on a rock, and he was sleeping. He was tired, and he had with him some chickens, and they were wrapped in this red blanket. And he was tired. He started to walk. He forgot his chickens, left them there. A year later, he was traveling by the same route, and he decided, let me try my luck, maybe. And it happened to be the home of one of the sages. And he came there to say, is it possible maybe a year ago someone found chickens that had this red blanket they're wrapped in? Said, yeah, we found them. Oh, wow. So what happened? Let me show you. And this rabbi takes him outside to the farm, opens the door, shows him like 5 goats, and says, here they are. No, it was a chicken that I lost. I said, yeah, but the chicken, they laid eggs. They said, we sold the chicken, we sold the eggs, we bought goats, and they took care of these goats. Now, these goats, these are your chickens. In other words, is this what I would have done if this would have been mine? So he did the same thing with the other person's possession. Now, there are halachas. Am I supposed to go that far out and taking care of someone else's thing or not? So that's like I said, there's books and books on these halachas. I want to do number 10, and then I'll go back maybe tomorrow to 8 or 9. Number 10 is lo sachmod, do not covet. Is that one of the 10 commandments?
Yes, do not be jealous.
Does anyone know what it means, do not covet? Because I found that a lot of people are not familiar with what the halach
Do
is.
not be jealous of another man's wife.
That's one of the things.
What's that? I don't understand this.
Covet?
COVID?
Covet means that I want someone else's, it says in the Torah, someone else's wife, someone else's field, someone else's house, like jealousy of another person. Yeah. So I'll tell you what the halacha is. Many people are not familiar with it. The halacha is, if I see something by another person and I want it, I'm not allowed to take it because I want it. I'll explain what I mean before you jump. It means like this. If you see someone wearing a pair of boots and they're really beautiful boots, could I have your boots? I'll pay you for it. Are you allowed to do it or not? According to this commandment, you're not allowed to do it. If you go to the store and buy another pair of boots that looks like this, that's not a problem. But if I want your boots and I ask the person to sell it, I'm not, even if I'm going to pay them for it, I'm not allowed to, because what I'm doing is I'm attracted to something that belongs to you, and I'm not allowed to give in to that impulse.
What if they agree?
So
Even if they agree, of
you're
course.
on your end that you're not supposed to.
If they offer it to you, it's a different story.
The story of my boots I'm right now is that I saw it on my friend's shop and I was like, wow, those would be great for when I go to New York. And then I was like, hey, you have really nice boots. She's like, yeah, but they're too small. And I'm like, hey, can I buy them off of you? She's like, sure, that would actually really help me to buy myself a new pair. Does that count?
Well, I'm not sure that I know the exact halachas, the intricate details of the halacha, but in some cases, it's one of the 10 commandments that you're not allowed to take something that belongs to another person because I want that belongs to that person. So maybe this is different because it's not that you want theirs, it's just easy because of technical reasons. But I guess there's a certain nature in the person that I want what the other person has. That's usually a nature. And we're not allowed to nurture that nature. By nurturing that nature, it leads to jealousy, it leads to envy, and it could lead to, friction and fighting and other things that are negative character traits.
You mean, again, it's kind of stealing.
No, I'm doing it with your permission, and I don't know, I'm paying you for it. So what's wrong? The mere fact that I want something that you have, I shouldn't satisfy that desire.
Oh, the intention, not.
Right.
So what the difference if you wanna buy this in the store, buy this, please, like, same
Because
thing?
a store is for the purpose of selling it, and there I buy it. Here, I want something that's yours.
Oh,
Okay.
In
So
other words,
I-
I'm feeding a certain negative character trait, which is jealousy. That's what's happening. What does it say there? Don't desire other person's home, another person's wife, another person's possession. Unfortunately, in marriage, that also can happen. I see someone else, wow, his wife or her husband is so much better than mine. But usually it's a nature that the other person's, in English expression, the grass is greener on the other side. You always feel they have it better than me. And I want that. And that leads to jealousy, sometimes to hate, sometimes to do things that you're not allowed to. So we're not allowed to nurture that nature. We're not allowed to develop. We're supposed to squeeze it, not let that nature develop. And be happy with what I have and not the one what the other person has. I once heard somebody say he's advertising a new kind of cigarette, but you have to know what it means. In Yiddish, Yenens means the other person's. It belongs to someone else. So this cigarette brand is called Yenens. It's cheaper, it tastes better, it's always available. Yenens, in other words, it's someone else's cigarettes, not mine. I don't buy cigarettes myself, I'll get it from someone else. But the general idea is that we're not allowed to feed this kind of a nature. That's called the sachmed.
I mean, the cigarette belongs to somebody else.
Now, how people walk over to someone, can I have a cigarette? People ask, people who smoke, go to someone else, can you have a spare cigarette?
Is it okay, no?
What? No, it's okay, but I'm saying it's a joke that these are the best cigarettes because they're cheaper.
Oh, yeah, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
What about a child who like will refuse to eat their mom's cooking, but if their friend's mom makes the exact same thing, they'll eat it? That's like.
Only the intention is different.
Food is different, I think. Interesting question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know the story with this guy who got married and his wife tried to do some nice cooking.